Hello, beautiful stars. Welcome to Stars of the Morning Light. I am Courtney, the host, and we have another Matrix Living episode with you today with Zig Zag Zilla. He does have his own channel here at YouTube. It's actually a great channel, folks, where Zig Zag talks about all sorts of different things from gardening to health to metaphysical. You do a great job, Zig Zag. I really like your shorts and your long form. So, welcome everybody in and welcome to Zigzag. Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for inviting me onto the show.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you here. So, Zigzag, every guest I have, we start with the same roundabout question as to do you have a personal memory, instance, something you'll share with us that it was the moment in your life that you could kind of remember it opened your eyes to, whoa, there's something else happening in this place that we live, this earth, this matrix. Would you share that with us?
Sure. Um, I look at the Matrix first and foremost as our living environment, like where we're at now. This is the Matrix. Um, it's kind of like when you have a bone matrix, and if you have a bone matrix, it consists of certain elements. Your body, basically, I talk about this on my channel where it's an instrument of the mind. But just like, I take blueprints and, little nuggets from things that I don't necessarily follow, but I look at it as a blueprint would be like the Bible. The Bible says man comes from the soil, he dies, he goes back to the soil. You look at the body and the earth that you walk on, and the elements are exactly the same. That's what creates this matrix. So you create the matrix basically upon observation of the matrix. Because I get into quantum science on my channel. I get into, it's basically tying in the whole metaphysical, like science and spirituality thing together, rather than isolating it and looking at it as two different things. Uh, so the thing with me is that was, when I was a child, I was a very curious child. I remember I was in school and we were being taught about certain things that were pretty fascinating to me. Now, I don't know why particularly history was one of my favorite subjects. I always liked to know what happened in our past. It's almost like my questioning always came down to like where I'm at now and what things were like in the past. And what's funny is that my son is
Mm.
12 years old and he's a lot like me, and I see this because he asks me questions like, Papa, how do you think it was to be in the 50s or the 60s? And he's always fascinated by this. He even looks things up online to see how the cars looked, how the buildings looked. He went back far enough to see how certain cathedrals and stuff were built. And I said, man, I see a lot of myself in him because a lot of the structures, like I remember the things that kind of stuck out to me the most were like the pyramids of Giza, and they were telling us how they were built in school. And it never quite made sense to me because believe it or not, I would question and question and question until the teacher said, look, these are the answers that you need to pass this test. And then, upon thinking about this now, I'm like, man, they told us this back in the day. It's more or less like don't question anything, just follow the scripts of what's laid out for you to pass a test. And then this will determine how smart you are. And growing up, this stayed with me, you know. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't growing up the quickest, sharpest kid in school. Like when it came down to math problems, I couldn't stand math. But I
Mm.
remember there was things that I would see like other kids excelling in, and I wasn't excelling in. And then I remember I was in a Catholic school, and like these nuns would get pissed off at me because I didn't get the
Yeah.
equations as quick as the other kids, right? And I started to feel like maybe I wasn't as smart. And then thinking about it now, I'm like, I'll run circles around all these dorks that were once in school that, like, I looked at as smarter than me, and I don't think they're that smart. So it kind of like changed my whole perception about things. But this is where it all started anyway. It's just a childlike curiosity. And I noticed that a lot of people, as adults in these spiritual movements, they'll want to acquire like knowledge and whatnot. And it's like, the first thing I ask myself is, what is the purpose of me wanting to acquire any kind of knowledge, right? Because with knowledge is power, but it also blinds you. Because I feel like the smarter you are, sometimes the dumber you are. And
Mm.
this I've seen through like debates and whatnot with like certain individuals that I actually follow and watch online, and they try to gain all this intellect, but it's no different than just regurgitating things that you've learned when you were a child, but you don't really truly understand the root core of what it is that you're actually talking about. So with me, it's like I start to look at my reality, and you know how in the Matrix you got all these numbers, you got these lines and whatnot. In this reality, it's seen through the cracks of those things because there's an inner matrix as well. Like you see how there's debates about how the earth is flat or round and there's an inner earth and whatnot. Like none of that really matters. But when you start to look at your body, you got things called a solar plexus. You know what I'm saying? You got a heart, which the anagram for heart is earth. You start to look at all these like what we call chakras, you know what I'm saying? Like energy
Mm-hmm.
centers. And I studied a lot of anatomy and physiology. But I noticed that the more I started to understand the human body, the more I actually understand the things outside of me from a knowing space and not from and I'm talking about knowing from like just a realization, not just, oh, I'm tying these dots in and now I have knowledge and I can talk about it, but experiencing these things is like a different thing. If
Yeah,
I'm going all
you.
over the place, let me know because I want to make sure that I stay
No, no,
like
no.
very,
Well,
very
you're
neat on the
saying
topic
I
that we have.
know. Well, that's
Mhm.
sometimes that's why it's good to actually watch your channel because you'll be able to go on these rants that if you follow along, it's like, wow, you know. So
Yeah.
everybody, go to the description below and subscribe to Zig Zag Zilla, please. Um, you said a lot of great stuff. From kudos to you and your son for paying attention to history and it kind of springing all these other thoughts. And I do think what you're saying right now about you can have a whole lot of knowledge, but that doesn't mean much anything unless you're applying it. And if you're applying it, then
Right.
you're experiencing it, and you have so much information out there about being one with the earth and the back and forth between us and the earth that we can get into. And I think that relates back to at the very beginning. I don't know if you even noticed, you said like we're creating the matrix within our perception, like how you view it. You said your perception of it. That, I mean, you've said so much that we can dive into because I love the fact that you're keeping it grounded. You're keeping these big
Right.
concepts, these big knowing that you have of, yeah, metaphysical science, all of it, all of it. But then you're bringing it back to where it really matters, where we're walking around, what we're doing. You're keeping it grounded. So that's one of the reasons why I invited you on in the first place was your approach to discussing these things. That even if they're way out there concepts, well, let's bring them back to the root. Let's bring them back to that chakra. Let's bring them back to the earth. Let's talk about this stuff of how all things are connected. So how about we go with that of how do you try to experience your creation within this matrix?
Can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, how do you try to experience your creation within this matrix? Meaning, if our perception is a part of the creation about of our world, our environment, if our comings and goings are creating, if just being connected period to this earth is some form of our experience, how do you work within that or even experience it? Like how do you is it based on choice? Is it based on your knowing? Is it based on your consciousness?
That's a
Where
great question. That's
yeah.
that's actually the topic is the consciousness. That's basically where I always stem everything from. But knowing that everything is basically symbolism, I can look at trees. Like I'll walk in the forest and it already uh in my mind I see the connection between like people and the forest, right? Like when I learned how to garden, I remember that they were saying like there's certain acid loving plants and certain alkaline loving plants. And then they'll say there's certain like trees in nature that are more acidic loving and some are more alkaline loving, but everything's growing together. Like when you have a garden, they'll say don't plant certain things together because of the way they like the soil, or let's say for example they compete for nutrients and whatnot. In nature, I noticed that nothing is basically competing for anything, but there's something developing under the root system called the mycelium network. And I'm noticing that because of that mycelium network, everything, like you can have a sick tree and you'll have one tree send nutrient to another tree just because of that network. Like humans have that as above, so below, right? The trees have it below. We have this above us as far as a frequency that we can all connect to, because your vibe attracts your tribe, right? But we're like garden plants instead of like trees in nature or plants in nature, because we lost that connection. So we have like this illusion of
Mm-hmm.
competition with each other. And instead, when we realize that, we have that same mycelium network above where we can break through the weeds of, like, let's say Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff, you start to have more of that heart to heart connection, right? So consciousness. I want to talk about that because there's like different levels of consciousness. Like I look at animals, right? And animals are nothing but like an extension of us, right? And we're the smartest creatures on the planet. People say like Christ consciousness and whatnot. Uh, I'll look at it like this: like we have certain plants in nature that if you ingest them, they give you a psychoactive experience. You'll have an altered state of consciousness, right? But we think we are the one that's having that altered state of consciousness. I realized this, and I realized just upon like certain deep levels of meditation that when you take anything outside of you and put it into your body, what you have is the plant having an experience through your body. So if you're not really attuned, you'll think you're the one having the experience, but the plant, you're actually observing. Like if you take a psychoactive mushroom, and all those things that start to happen, that altered state of consciousness, you're experiencing the plant having that experience through the body. So you're experiencing consciousness. So when you talk about experiencing, my mental state and my vibratory state of being, at times, if I sit back and just reflect on life, it's the same thing. I'm actually experiencing my consciousness, and my level of experience is determined by my mental state. So the choices and decisions I make, you can go into the topic of predeterminism or free will and whatnot. That's a tricky, slippery slope where, you can say the brain already made a decision ahead of time before you became aware of it and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's a totally different topic. But if you just stay like present, you'll notice that you're experiencing your consciousness, and you can actually experience by the thoughts and experiences, like let's say the certain hunches, inspirations, and ideas, or the certain choices that you make, uh, based on thoughts. You'll notice those thoughts are not even yours. They're not your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? They're just
Mm-hmm.
basically flowing around, and based on because you're like a frequency, an antenna. You give out a frequency, in the same way you attract people, you attract certain thoughts as well. So that's where I kind of started to notice the separation between like what I am actually associating with to what I'm actually experiencing as through the body. And the body is just like I said, it's an instrument of the mind. The matrix is something outside where, we can say, is it real? Is it not? Are we in a simulation? It's just levels of dimensions. Those are all just brainwaves, mental states of being. So like even dimensions, when we start to talk about dimensions, uh, I look at that as mental states. Like I can look at something narrow-minded, or I can have an expansive, perception about it. Where, like, let's say if somebody gets into religion, and they're only like laser focused on like Christianity, they'll go debate other religions. Where if you step outside that bubble, you'll notice that everybody's really talking about the same thing, just in their own language or their own different forms. Like spirituality is another thing. A lot of people religify spirituality, calling, the universe, uh it's like the universe is God. You know what I'm saying? Like the universe granted me this. It's like saying God blessed me with this. Praying is there's an art to meditation and praying, but it's done almost in a way where you just kind of like left Christianity to get into another religion, and that
Mm-hmm.
still keeps you outside of yourself. But it doesn't matter if it's Christianity or whatnot. If you do it, it's not what you do, but how you do it. You can be into Christianity. I actually know a few Christians, but they're in the same uh thought. bubbles that I'm in when it comes to how you do it, how you pray, and how you look at God. God is in man. That's why it's Christ in man. And then you see the same like man over woman, woman over children. That's like their religious order and whatnot. But these are all just concepts of the mind. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like Christ in man is your awareness. Awareness is what's needed as far as that's why you're consciously aware and you can have a self-awareness of yourself. I can be conscious of my environment, but suppose that I'm walking in the forest and I'm not aware of a log in the floor, I'm gonna trip and fall and break my face. I can be conscious. Everybody's conscious. Like you, anybody can say I'm conscious. Yeah, I'm conscious. But what are you aware of? You know what I'm saying? And the
Mm-hmm.
awareness is
Mm-hmm.
saying like read between the lines, right? I could be doing this to you and you wouldn't know what I'm doing unless I do this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like reading between the lines, you'll see what is actually happening in your reality. You can, if you're aligned with truth, you can see the truth in front of, even if there's a lie, you can see between the cracks. Like the matrix is the lie. They'll say this is nothing but an illusion. Yeah, but thank goodness for that illusion because you can see what truth actually is because we're living in polarity. So duality is the illusion, but polarities is the experience. That's why I'm able to have an individual self having my individual experience and you can have your individual experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can have this experience experiencing each other because of polarity, but it's nothing but chemistry. You can have
Mm-hmm.
good chemistry with somebody or bad chemistry with somebody. So like right now, we have good chemistry. We're having a conversation. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
chemistry. So it's positive and negative. But the positive is needs the negative for positive to be positive. You get what I'm saying? The negative needs negative. It's
Yes.
like you're not going to demonize one or the other or say the singularity, you need just one thing. It's for the purposes of experience, we need to have those. It's like you have, you can look at electrical systems. You have a positive prong and a negative prong. That's the masculine, you call the female and masculine. You plug an
Mm-hmm.
appliance to the wall, you need both to actually get power to the appliance. So it's the same thing here. We actually interact and we interact with chemistry based on the decisions and the choices you make, you decide whether you light certain things up in your reality or you just making a decision of to discard something, you put death to something there in and of itself. So every day I'm not living rigid like this, you know what I'm saying? But you could kind of live the life of a Christian where they say treat your neighbor as you would yourself, but it's not done under fear by saying, oh, I'm going to do that because I want to win God's favor and I want to go to heaven. No, you live heaven on earth by being in the kingdom of heaven, which is within you. And you just naturally treat man outside as you would yourself because you don't see the separation between you and that person. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you'll do it for the betterment of that person, knowing that when you do that, you're bettering yourself because you that person is nothing but a mirror or reflection of you, and they're there in your environment because you attracted them in some way, shape, or form by your vibratory state. You know, so there's people who trigger you. Sometimes those triggers are blessings in disguise. If
Mm-hmm.
you stop and take your time rather than, reacting, that's an experience that you start to embody. It becomes a lifestyle where you don't leak your energy out. It's kind of like a person who's good with money and good investments. Like you know what to invest your money in, right? If you make bad investments, you at the end of the day are going to be suffering with low money, with low finances. So it's like that with energy. And the higher energy you have, the more better your spiritual experiences are when you're trying to accomplish, like, let's say, out of body or, whatever it may be, alter state of consciousness. Because even yogis will tell you before you do any psychoactive drugs or ayahuascas and whatnot, they tell you to meditate, fast, and be clean. Why is that? It's for the purposes of preserving energy and raising your vibration to have better experiences, right? But it's not to
Mm-hmm.
discard low vibratory experiences because everybody can manifest on low vibratory experiences. They do it every day.
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
think they
Yeah.
live hell on earth? They're living hell on earth because they're attracting a hellish state in their environment, and it's done through low vibratory states. And it's actually easier to manifest those because they're more grounded, they're more solid,
Mm-hmm.
more tangible. The higher up things are something that's less fathomable, so they're harder to attain. That's why it requires more of a mental focus, but a heart to bring connection because you're actually manifesting from the heart. You get what I'm saying? Because you're in the heart. So that's why if you're in your heart, you're home because this is home. So that's your reflect. You're actually reflecting from the heart. The mind is making sense of everything, right? It's like decoding reality. So you use the intellect. That's the masculine. The feminine is the subconscious mind, which is basically below the mind. The subconscious is below consciousness, and that is nothing but a receiver. But you have to know with the mind how to be able to say no or interact with things. And that's basically what you're allowing into your space is through consciousness. But the Christ is the awareness. So once you're aware, you know what to let in and what to let out. Without the awareness, it's almost like your masculine mind is no different than the feminine mind. It's just allowing things in and not knowing what's going into your subconscious mind. So it's very important to cultivate that level of awareness, and that's done through eating properly, uh, and knowing what you're engaging in and whatnot. So it's all about energy, because everything, even Nikola Tesla said, is energy, frequency, and vibration. So if
Mm-hmm.
everything here in this realm is money, in the matrix, money, everything revolves around the dollar.
Right.
Spiritually, if you knew yourself and you knew what the true currency was, it's energy.
Mm-hmm.
Attention is energy because you pay attention, right? Energy is everything here. If you know that, then you prioritize your energy. And once you prioritize your energy, things like money tend to follow you, because like attracts like, right? But it just
Right.
depends what vibratory state you're in. I know I went a lot long winded there, so I'll let
No,
you
no,
go
no,
and
no.
finish.
But you, well, you went around all the way around and brought it back to like really answering the
Mhm.
question, as in what you pay attention to, right? Then that determines really your experience more so here. You gave a
Right,
lot of examples in all sorts of ways, and I have to say, I was considering doing a short just the other day, and I didn't record it yet. About, I wanted to ask the world if all those feelings, all those perceptions that you have when you do take a substance, do
right.
you think that you can achieve that without taking a substance? Because I believe that we can, but I was going to put it into like this short and maybe hopefully reveal to people that, you know, kind of like what you said, you're actually allowing the plant to have the experience, not maybe so much you, human. So
100%.
even when you went into that, I was like, wow, I'm rolling right in track with Zigzag here because I was just thinking about that the other day. And it's not, I personally, people can do as they please. Um, but I would love for more people to acknowledge that it is the awareness. And we are capable of having all of those experiences without having to use things because we are just as ultimate as the plants that we're utilizing, right? So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I also the way you went into the difference between duality and polarity, I thought was brilliant. Thank you for breaking that down for folks, because we do live in the world of duality, which is the competition, the take, me versus you, us versus them, that kind of stuff. We experience it, right? Until we start experiencing different. But the polarity is not the same as duality. It is actually how we all it's a different form of communication. Is how I heard you kind of talking about it. Is that
Mhm.
we need different aspects, opinions, species, sexes, all this stuff to be in communication in order to create, in order to thrive, in order to experience the fullness. And I think a
Right.
lot of people get that. I think people get stuck on the duality and the corruption of the duality. That they put it in the same category as polarity, and it's not the same. So I appreciated you speaking upon that, and then also speaking upon that consciousness and awareness is also not the same thing. Like everybody has a conscious. You, if you can drive a car, if you can feed yourself, if you can put on your shoes, that takes some form of consciousness. Awareness
Right.
is a different thing. And that's what people are seeking. That's what we're desiring within this whole big grand awakening, is to gain the awareness and attach it to our then conscious actions, our conscious words and thoughts. So I really appreciate that because it is the awareness. It's two separate things.
Well, where does energy go? If you put your energy too much outside of yourself, the spiritual you, let's call it, just for the sake of conversation, is
Hmm.
diminished of energy. It goes to sleep, right? So it's like when you meditate, you need a certain level of awareness, right? Let's say if you're meditating, you want to have an out of body experience. Any type of spiritual experience you want to have requires awareness. And if you don't have an awareness, what happens? You just fall asleep, right? And a lot of times people are like your subconscious mind actually runs the show here in this reality, right? Your conscious
Mm-hmm.
mind only is in charge of 5%. 95% subconscious, which is basically just running on automatic programs. So that's basically what people actually seem to look like automatons, right? Now you can actually have a altered state of consciousness without the plants. I've had many of those, but it's just requiring you to breathe properly, right? And eliminating a certain level of toxicity out of the body too, because
Mm-hmm.
these toxins being very inflammatory, what happens with the body is that you have something called a parathyroid. That when you have a lot of acidity in the body, it produces calcitonin, right? And what it does is it uses these calcium, which it starts to rob it all over the body, and it uses this as a carbonate. And the reason why it uses that as a carbonate is to keep you alive, because if your body goes too acidic, you would die.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens when you have too much a lack of calcium utilization in the body, or just basically produce in excess amounts to balance out acids, you start to experience something called a calcified pineal gland. Like people say, I got a
Right.
calcified pineal gland. That's why they say that when you eat a certain way or detox, you decalcify your pineal gland. But all you're doing is you're aiding the body in breaking apart, stagnant and agglomulation in the form of calcification or arthritis or inflammation, swelling, and all that, which is stagnant through alkalinity. So you
Right.
would eat fruits, right? And I don't live a rigid lifestyle. I don't eat fruits all the time. You know what I'm saying? But I grow a lot of fruits. Uh, but if I had any, like, let's say health issues or an intent for something, then yeah, you would go on a protocol to detox your body, right? It's let's say for example, everything in life you're kind of like, say if somebody has cancer, right? You know how people say I'm battling cancer, you're going up against something. So
Right.
what do you do when you're going up against something? You use the right arsenal, you use the right mental states and the right firepower to combat the enemy, right? And that's if you're going to use your mind in that state for using the imagination to go and battle something, right? When you do this, you use the right tools. As if I'm going to an MMA fight where I used to do MMA, I would have to be on a strict diet. And the reason why is because I have to make weight, but I also have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure my performance is enhanced through the proper fuel that I'm taking, right? And I have to make weight first and foremost. So the important part here is the disciplines to be able to make weight and train accordingly so I can battle my opponent and win. Now, there's going to be something called a press conference where we're going to be trash talking each other. And this is basically the mental warfare part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we go through in life every day.
Yes.
Doctors are going to tell you have cancer, and what happens? You're going to get scared. You're going to like freak out, and that shuts your immune system down to begin with. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when you're in fear, you give away all your power because you're like, you put yourself at the mercy of these people because you don't know any other alternative. Because instead of saying, how can I fix this? You say, what do I need to fix this? Right. So if you say, how can I fix this? Believe it or not, the right hunches, inspirations, and ideas, the right people, places, and things will attract to you because you are in position, because it's all alignment. You
Mm-hmm.
align yourself with that and you will find the right people. They're nothing but versions of yourself. These people are not any bigger than you. You just happen, as a God, attract those people by declaring that you are making an intent to heal your body. So you're going to find the right herbs to come across your path. The right people, the right things are going to present themselves to you, and upon resonance, you're going to say, I resonate with what this person is saying. You'll indulge yourself into the research and you'll see that you are going to find truth. You're not going to land into rabbit holes because when you do research,
Mm-hmm.
there's the pharmaceutical industry, there's the allopathic, holistic, naturopathic. And when you find yourself into a space, that's a rabbit hole. When you are looking at things as an observer, but you actually align with God, you're going to see the big scope of things rather than getting into a rabbit hole. Like people start arguing about dumb shit like, is the earth
Right.
flat or round? And
What
you
does
look
it
at quantum
matter?
science,
Yeah.
it doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
matter. Like the earth is a wave. The earth, in fact, when you look at your body, that is the earth, right? You will start to question, can you leave? Is it possible to leave? Did they lie about the moon? You see what I'm saying? So there's too many
Oh
complexities of
yeah.
things. That's why I go all over the place too when I talk, because it's not just one way. Like these things are so complex sometimes, yet so simple. That's the whole thing. I don't want people to think that it's complicated. Things are very
Yes.
simple, right?
Yes.
But they're
Yes.
complex in a way where there's many different avenues. It's just like
Right.
chemistry. You don't address the body by because that's what medical thinking does. Medical thinking, if you have like a problem in your body, they isolate fixing that. But
Right.
upon taking a medication to fix that, you compromise something else. You get what I'm saying? Like when you look at the
Yeah.
body holistically or naturopathically, you'll look at it as one machine working. So like let's say if you got one organ in your body that's not working properly, I would look at it like you play organs in a church, right? But you got
Hmm.
one song that's happening, not multiple songs
Hmm.
because you have many organs.
Right.
All those organs are making one song. So if one of those organs are off in church, the song sounds distorted. That's why
Hmm.
some people who are like vibing higher, they look healthy, they look so vibrant. People say, "Man, that person's vibrating. Look how animated they are. They're so
Right.
freaking healthy."
Right.
You can tell by their mental states and stuff like that, the clarity and how they say things matters, right? Because that's all a frequency that you give out. So you give off a frequency of health too. The way you carry yourself is the same way. But
Right.
if you got one organ off, you don't attack that. You gotta heal that organ. But upon knowledge, you'll know that it's all coming down to fluidity because your body's made of water. If anything that's not moving and you're made of energy, again, we're going back to Nikola Tesla, energy, frequency, and vibration. We're talking about the energy part. Energy needs to move. What doesn't move tends to rot and stagnate, and that's where the problems create. How do you encourage movement? Fluidity, that's done through alkalinity. But now here's where you
Right.
play with chemistry. When you put too much cold on something, you tend to freeze it too. So you have to add a little heat to it. You ever hear something, let's spice up the situation a little bit?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? So you're playing with chemistry. It's not to say that alkaline is good and acid is bad. Acid is the building blocks of life. You need the amino acid change, right?
Right.
For like kids,
Right.
especially who are growing up. But when you're
Right.
going backwards in age, you with knowledge would know that you need the chemistry back to when you were a child. Hence, when you go, they say that to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to be childlike. This even goes into how you were eating. When you acclimate to solid food, you introduce more of the fluidity into your body. And if you are what you eat, you'll
Hmm.
notice that you're more fluid. You'll start to have better mental clarity. Your mind is more open. You start to move better, like kids, and you have more energy. Old people have low energy is because they're all dehydrated. It's literally
Hmm.
dehydration. That's
I
what
know.
life force is.
I know.
When if your body's like the planet and all the planets that we know of outside, like Mars, Pluto, Jupiter, whatever, you notice how scientists are trying to find life in other planets. The first thing they look for is what? Water.
Water.
So the
Yeah.
reason this
Water.
planet is abundant is because of the water, and we are
Right.
an instrument of this planet. Yet we're dehydrated. We're supposed to be more water. More like if you look at what you prioritize first is breathing, right? Because 70% of your toxins are eliminated through breathing. So if you breathe properly, right, that's life force. So if you breathe properly, you'll notice you'll have more energy because you're oxygenating red blood cells
Hmm.
and you're actually catering to the
You're getting it
bacteria
all
in your body.
moving. Yeah.
Right. Now you prioritize fluidity, but it's not just water. You have to eat water foods like watermelons and grapes because uh hydration is not drinking water, it's alkalinity. Because you ever pour
Hmm.
water on the soil on a really hot, dry day, the water kind of just rolls off. You want alkalinity where things are soaking in a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
And then last, you prioritize food. Like us humans, we're actually supposed to be eating, if anything, 3 to 4 times a week, but we're eating like 5 or 6 times a day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why the
Right.
problems are starting to cause. Because if you study the stomach doesn't even look like it was designed to intake food the way we were eating foods anyway.
No, I
And
know
then
it's
the
not. I
kind of
mean,
yeah.
why are
Hmm.
we not grazing? I mean, we're supposed to be grazing like the animals graze. I mean, it's much better for us. But
Hmm.
sweetheart, you have just said so much as in it's kind of where you started. You started because what I'm hearing a lot in a ways is we are living in this matrix. We're matrix living, we're experiencing it. And at the very beginning, you had said that our consciousness, our awareness is actually more in control of our body and our environment than we're aware of, than we give it credit to. And everything you just said related me back to that at the beginning, which then made me think of taking the personal responsibility. It's funny, kind of, you ended on hydration because I am known within my community of every single question somebody has, my first response is, "Are you drinking water? Are you drinking water?" Like, that is my response to pretty much everything. Just please drink water because I don't even really want to go into this unless you are. So,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you, are you hydrated? Because you're not even going to be thinking right and moving right or doing anything really of value for yourself without that. So that I thought that was everybody. There you go. See, everybody listening would probably be like, "Oh, they got on water, of course." Here at Stars of the Morning Light. Um, but I'm hearing foremost, kind of with everything that you have said so far. Pretty much, yes, everything. Taking that personal responsibility of not just your body and accepting and noticing the awareness coming through to equip you with all that's going on, but also like the responsibility of how you are in relation to everything else. We have to be responsible for that, for the body, for the mind, for everything. That's what I'm hearing is taking responsibility because I'm constantly I drive with you when you're saying a lot is the subconscious, right? That the subconscious is creating a lot of this. But I do believe that the conscious and the subconscious can be in full awareness communication and we can be aware of it. That it's not like, oh man, because how you were talking about, we kind of invite this stuff in, we attract this stuff via the subconscious. I'm thinking I do believe humans can know exactly what's going on with the subconscious and consciousness. It can be a beautiful dance of that masculine feminine. I do believe that, but I don't believe we're there yet. So I'm always
Courtney,
trying to
have
go ahead,
I'm
sweetheart.
sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off. Have you heard of the Hermetic principles?
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That if any like laws I resonate with the most are those, and the number one is the law of mentalism. The mind is all, the
Right.
universe is mental. And if you understand that, I mean, victim mentality would never even exist. Even the things that
Oh, I
appear
know.
outside of you, because that's the weakest state to be in, to be honest with you, and that's what keeps people trapped in a hellish state in, if we want to call it the matrix, right? Like your body is made of cells, right? You can make your body feel like a jail cell or a cell that empowers and amplifies battery life, right? Because you have cells or batteries too, and actually your
Mm-hmm.
cells hold a certain amount of amps of voltage. And if you're made
Yes.
of trillions of cells, just think about how much electricity you can give off, right? But a lot of people don't know this ability. One of the things that I actually realized this upon, like there's certain things that I've done as far as meditation goes, and I want to get into, because just to answer your question, how what even triggered my little journey into this like matrix thing that we're talking about, because I know this is the big topic of your show, but I also want to ask you a question in return after
No,
that.
we're
So remember,
yeah, yeah, we're just
yeah.
having
And
fun. It's
one thing I
Saturday
do
night.
appreciate, what I appreciate this about you is you're very good with keeping up with the conversation. I think you're a very good interviewer. So
Oh,
you
thank
kind
you.
of redirected me in a, yeah. So that kudos to you for that. I notice you're keeping up with everything as far as like what I'm saying, and I'm all over the place sometimes. So that's
I
good.
got you though, man. We actually speak the same language, but like the stars here at Stars of the Morning Light right now are listening and they're going, "Oh yeah, they say the exact same thing just differently." So I
Yeah,
can keep
yeah,
up with you definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So
So go back to what you were saying and add in the whole story memory of how you got to this part.
right, what was I saying before I said that? The first thing,
You said you were going to say you wanted to go back to share the memory that you have as to
right?
why, yeah, and then you started talking about how we came full circle, but you were then talking also about the hermetic
The
principle of
meta
all is
person. There you go.
mental.
There
Yes,
you go.
that
That's the one.
we wouldn't even have victim mentality if it wasn't for that. So there you go, darling. You got the floor.
I was just testing you. Don't worry. I was just playing. So and the victim mentality is the weakest state to be in. This is what I was talking about, was the cells of the body and whatnot, and it's all done because of your mind. Like you actually are hallucinating your reality, but you run on a big giant placebo effect. If anything, like your mind will make anything real. You know what I'm saying? So like
Hmm.
even the things outside of you, like government, the whole conspiracies that we look at, saying that people are out to get you, that's nothing but a manifestation of your ego. And I had this realization upon like
Hmm.
certain like meditative practices I've done, that literally I'm the one keeping myself from doing all these things. Like, you know how somebody
Yes.
asked me, and this is where it triggered me. Somebody said, "Who did you vote for? What president?" I said, "I don't care what president. It's not going to change my life. I'm not going to feel any different tomorrow than I do now, regardless of what president is elected, right? But it triggered me into the state of saying, man, everything in general, but that's because I don't pay attention to politics as much, right? But everything in general, everything that you could think of,
Mm.
if I put attention to it, it's literally a manifestation of my ego. I'm my own worst enemy based on where I'm putting my attention in. It's almost like this, like somebody can live a conspiracy theory lifestyle and say, man, you don't see what's happening. And they start to like doomsday prep everything. Those people are
Mm-hmm.
more than likely to experience a doomsday apocalypse over somebody who's not, where it's not to say that it won't happen because creation's created. There's good and bad, or as far as perspective goes, favorable or unfavorable. But let's say if a doomsday apocalypse did happen, the person who prepped for it may be living it like in real time while I may be experiencing it at the comfort of my own sofa, be like listening to it on the news or something like that, right? So it's
Right.
two totally different things that you'll experience based on your mental states, right? So when I look at what triggered me, right? This is what I was going to talk about now with the whole with the matrix thing. Um, with me, it was more of like a I was every day, doing. I was always having jobs that were I was always like kind of like the it was very complex. I was traveling. I was like in charge of like a lot of things, you know. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
one day I sat down in the couch, and I was feeling a little bit tired, but in a way it was like I was. You ever feel like you just kick back and you're like, man, so good. Like you just sit back and you just
Oh
feel so
yeah,
relaxed
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
here's the thing. You could go one or two ways. You could fall asleep or because you just let go completely. But here's the difference though. I was so appreciative for how relaxed I felt that it kept me awake and I experienced my body like falling asleep. That was the trippiest thing I will ever, I'm telling you right now. But after that, it was just a roller coaster of what happens after that. Because now I started to experience these things purposely. And that was the beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had to like perfect it, right? But the crazy thing is, there were times where I experienced my body fall asleep and I started to feel like I was spinning on a wheel. Like I'm just laying there, but
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious, right? Because anybody would just be like, whoa, what the hell was that? No, I stayed there and I was just curious to see what was happening, right? And I experienced my body go numb, but I was spinning on a wheel and I started to spin really, really quickly. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to open my eyes because I know I was aware I was on the sofa and I know that if I open my eyes, I'm gonna like come out of that experience. But
Mm-hmm.
it came to a point where I stopped spinning and I just went poof, and I just got shot up in the air. But it didn't
Nice.
feel like a G force. It was just like a magnetic pull, right? But I just kept going up and I just felt and if I felt it, it was so lucid. Like I just felt myself just going up. It was like the weirdest thing, right?
Yeah.
And but nothing happened. I just got like impatient and I just opened my eyes and there I was in the sofa. From there, I was the most curious. If I was curious before, I was more curious now. You know what I'm saying? There was
Yeah.
another time where I was laying there and the same thing happened, but I felt something like hands grabbing my ankles and just pulling me. But I felt like I was pulled out of my body. But my body, I wasn't my like I was just in the air, in the middle of the air, and I started to spin again. But this time I went down instead of up.
Mm.
But when I went
Mm-hmm.
down, I was in water. It was weird because I was underwater
Mm.
and now my body and here's the thing, I this is all still part of the mental realm because it's like I still had a body. You get what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
I've gone into states where it was so deep that what we have ideas of here, like let's say fire, light, it wasn't like fire the way you see fire here. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? It was totally different. We have like these ideas of what these things are based on words we use. Like you see, right now we're talking and I'm talking to you, and it's forming mental pictures in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a video on this where I realized that even just sitting there and detaching from language, detaching from everything, it will get you to the most craziest, trippiest experience you'll ever have. But when you're breathing a certain way, you develop a certain level of elements in your body, like DMT and whatnot. If you could manage yourself to
Mm-hmm.
get there, you have to have strong adrenal glands. Because I noticed there was times where I was like charged with certain energy that I couldn't even handle. I had to wake up out of it because I was like, I felt like my heart was gonna pump out of out of the chest because it was just
Yeah.
way too much, you know. And that's energy. I never felt energy like that before. So things like that, I started to get like experiment with that. I left, like, let's say I was very religious. I told you I went to Catholic school, but I went from religion. I started to hate religion. You know what I'm saying? Because I found so much discrepancies and lies in religion. Then I went through a rebellious state, and I'm not going all over the place. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to stay on topic. I'm going to come back to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
That
Yep.
I went completely left hand path. I'm talking about like Satan, devil, Lucifer type of shit. I
Yeah.
went like
Yeah.
indulged in the dark arts. And upon there, I started to realize that I was in another religious mindset. I just started to
Mm-hmm.
religify all these things outside of me. So
Mm.
now then I came to the space where I started to look at both sides as just chemistry, a necessary chemistry that needs to happen in order for us to be able to have an experience here. You get what I'm saying? And I'll make that in another, like, probably, because that can go into many different avenues too. But it's not becoming an atheist or a nihilist or anything like that. It's understanding that these things are actually aspects of yourself. You get what
Mm.
I'm saying? A person who's nihilistic or atheist, they don't understand, or agnostic means that, yeah, they say there's something there, but they just truly don't know. They need evidence. That's totally
Mm-hmm.
different. I already now know where there's people. I ask Christians, have you had an experience with God? And they say yes. And I believe them. Everybody has their own experience with God. But then we would have to ask questions like, what is God? Like,
Mm.
Courtney, I'm gonna ask you, what is God?
Right now that you're asking
Yeah,
me?
what is God to you? Let me just get out of the light over here because then I'll.
Wow, I don't know
All
if
right.
I've ever I don't know if I've ever spoken about my actual beliefs here about what that is. What is God?
What's your definition of God?
Nothing, to tell you the truth. I mean, the reason I say that is because anything that, like you just said, anything that comes out of my mouth is going to be held up into comparison to some kind of Godhead, dogma, religion, and I don't see it as anything like that. And honestly, I don't even really, people might refer to as like source energy, what have you, but that's not really a God. I do think that we're a part of a regenerate a regenerative system of not just this planet but many multiple planets that it's regenerative.
Do you believe
So
in the multiverse?
if I do, so
Yeah.
if there were a God, it would be that first thought, word, light, what have you, that penetrated into the darkness, the void, that then sprung forth all of this. And now
Right.
we are just going to keep going and doing and being in all these different ways and forms of regeneration. So the reason why I say it's kind of nothing is not because I don't think there's a beautiful original flash of source light that penetrated the void. That would be God to me, but we put we put things on God like a destination, characteristics, all these things that humans put on a God figure that I
Right.
don't think necessarily exists. I think that we need that. We need that, right? But at the same time, I'm just as much of a creator as God is, right? As much as that original word, forethought, spark, light, what have you, vibration, sound, energy, what have you, I'm just as much in this system of operations that is regenerative and ever going and everlasting. That so my interpretation is nowhere in comparison to what people already have in their head as
Right.
what is. So it's
That's a
kind of
very
hard
good thing you said
to,
there.
yeah, and what you said about like coming out of the Catholicism and then going way to the other end, with more of the darker
Dark arts.
religions, the dark arts, I too, uh, think, and because out of my experiences, um, it's that's common. It's common for us to be in one polarity and go way to the other side, rebellious, what have you, hurt, pain, fears, what have you. And then we kind of swing through and feel it out. And for me personally, at least in my older years, it's been more kind of like when you said, um, is the earth round or is it flat? What does it matter? Does it matter more how we're walking on it and living here? That should be the
Right.
matter, right? So, what is God? God is energy. I mean, everything to me is energy. So if I were to have a belief, a religion, mine is all is energy. To sum
Right.
up that big explanation the words out of my mouth would always be compared to what has been, when mine is more it is, and it is everything is energy.
Right. See, the reason I asked that is because that's a top word that everybody uses, right? But it's like the semantics here is important because it's like we'll talk past each other, right? We'll start to say, like, if I tell you I'm God, you have somebody say that's blasphemous. But how do you know what I mean by the word God, right? Like God to me, and you said something very interesting that I thought was perfect, which is what's already in everybody's head. What can you say that would have somebody relate to you without you looking adversarial to what they believe as God, right? So I have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
conversations with Christian people and can still uh, be friends with them only because I can acclimate to what they believe. And if I word it my way, right, where my definition of God is authority. Like you have like even back in the day where Greek
Oh.
mythology or whatnot, you'll say like God of the water, God of the air, God of the sun. You know what I'm saying? Like God means you're in charge of something. You're the authority, the author, right? If I'm writing a
Mm-hmm.
book, I'm in charge of that book. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
intellectual property. I'm the energetic signature. Like you said, everything's energy, right?
Yeah.
So I sign off on that project. I'm in charge of my life. But if I'm not God, I'm giving that authority to somebody else. And like I told you, the mind is all the
Right.
universe is. So that's why everything here is all based on mind control. Because people don't understand that if they don't control their mind, others will control it for them. And it's not anything that's not them. Outside of themselves is a manifestation of the ego. A lot of people are driven by their ego. So if you know how to be the bigger person, obviously, then you know how to make the choices and decisions, which is coming down to the multiverse part that I was telling you. If you believe in the multiverse, time is an illusion. Everything, every
Mm-hmm.
aspect of you exists now. The poor version of you, the bad version of you, the rich version of you,
Right.
the every version of you exists right now. But what happens is that the choice and decision you make now determines what you align with in that moment because it's not just making a choice
Mm-hmm.
and decision, it's actually taking the actions. That's why they say faith without
Right.
works is dead. So if you make a choice, you have to wholeheartedly embody that and then act on it. Because if you don't act on it, it's just faith without works is dead. You're not really, you're just staying the same. And in this realm, you're either regenerating or you're degenerating. You're either living or you're dying, one of the two. Technically, you're living, but you're still dying because your body is getting closer and closer to death as we go by the motions. Every moment you're
Mm-hmm.
existing, because also you're going through emotional moments, your body is dying, but you are supposed to actually be regenerating in spirituality.
Yes.
But you're supposed to understand how to do this like a child, going back to the childlike curiosity. Children come in here, they don't know
Yes.
limitations. We
Yes.
give them bad
Yes.
ideas of lack, bad ideas of like bad and good, bad ideas of all these things that they can't do. That's why kids throw temper tantrums because they don't know limitations. We give them limitations. When we start to
Right.
know that and understand this, embody that we're actually limited and operate through a space of no fear, right? And it's not to be reckless, is understanding that you have the power in your hands. The hands literally in
Yes.
reflexology has all your
Yes.
organs. This is why people do this a lot. Doing
Right.
this, you connect the right hand of the Father to the left hand path. You're creating a current. You're becoming a conduit. There's a closed circuit when you do this. So you're
Mm-hmm.
actually connecting the negative and aspect, like the same way when you connect to the planet. You give off negative, positive inflammatory ions. You get back anti-inflammatory negative ions. You're doing this, and if you ground or at least get some chemistry from the sun, you're an ultimate conduit, but you have to know what you're doing when it comes to this to be
Yes.
able to channel this. You get what I'm saying? You don't just
I
do this and just think you're gaining superpowers like a child. You know what I'm saying? Because people believe in God the same way a child believes in Santa Claus. They'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna follow the commandments, or I'm gonna treat my neighbor as I would myself because I want to earn God's favor and I want to go to heaven." No, heaven is here now. You enter
mm-hmm.
the kingdom of heaven as you came into the planet out of your mom, right? You came out of water, which is your mom,
Mm-hmm.
and you are in the kingdom of heaven. That's why you
Right.
come into the kingdom of heaven childlike. You leave the kingdom of heaven and enter your own kingdom of heaven, but you have to be childlike again. You know what I'm saying? Your body ages, but you
Yes.
never stop being a
Yes.
child. We only stop
Yes.
doing things a certain way, which is why, because your mind believes in the aging process. We, when we become older, we start to, let's say if you hate your childhood, you may hate children or you may hate uh, being playful and whatnot. You take everything so serious. It's
Mm-hmm.
because you got conditioned that way as an adult. But if you're an adult, you shouldn't stop playing. You should always be playing because that child is still in you. That's why people say, I'm connecting to my inner child. No, you think you're old, but you're not old. You're still that child. You just change the way you do things. Your
Yes.
society told you that you have to be a certain way and act a certain way to mold into society. So you do it that way, but you're still a child. That's
Right.
why they say we're
All of
children of
it,
God.
yeah, all of it is still within you and utilize all of it. And I think this is when, people will hear me say and others say, like, do enjoy, have joy. Like, the more we actually experience joy like a child again in life, because for a lot of us, it's been a long time, too long, all
Right.
this stuff becomes effortless. I mean, like you said, the limitations that are put on us, that's okay, the world put it on you. It puts it on everybody. You're not singled out. It puts it on everybody. Forgive, let go, and do enjoy. And I fully agree with you. And I think it is the mindset of a kid because an adult mind can intellectualize all this stuff, as you said. All this
Right.
stuff that we said, people can obsess over it, intellectualize it. That when really just go have fun and experience it. I I constantly say, and I have to go back to when you said you personally would say that God is authority. Dude, I wanted to I don't know, high five you wherever you I wanted to be like, yes, what a
Yeah.
great a descriptor word, adjective, what have you, for this quote unquote God aspect. Just the word authority. Because I don't know if you know this, but the subscribers here at Stars of Morning Light and beloveds, please remember, go over to Zig Zag Zilla and subscribe to his channel. There, this whole conversation is reasons why to go subscribe. I'm constantly saying zigzag. I'm constantly saying I am the great I am.
Yes.
Because I know the power and authority
That's
that I
right.
have. I am my mastery presence. And one of my goals is to be a demonstration, manifestation, and verbal communication to help others understand that so are they. I
Right.
think it's just our brainwashing, our programming, quote unquote, the limitations have become so comfortable in our existence and also within this living matrix or the matrix that we're living in, it gets so comfortable. But like what I had said too and what you have been saying, we don't have much to compare it to, right? Like, I am a free, completely free master, complete I am ultimate. I am ultimate, and I know I am the great I am. I know this and I trust it and I know it. But for someone else to even comprehend that, they tend to compare it to what is known, and that is not known. We have nothing to compare it to. So we have these conversations here at Matrix Living at Stars of Morning Light to at least introduce these concepts, introduce that there is much more to the limitations that we have come accustomed to.
And tying it back to the beginning, right? Like when you talked about the matrix, and this is what I was gonna get to, but I don't think I covered it. But see how I talked about like a bone matrix, there's a skin matrix, there's a skeletal matrix. That's like on a
Right.
micro level. You have your body. If you look at the body, it's made of the same elements as the earth. The same way a bone matrix is like phosphorus, magnesium, potassiums, and all that kind. There's certain elements that make a bone matrix, but it has to be a specific chemistry. You basically are the manifestation of the entire world that you see of. And I've mentioned this in my videos. I don't care if it's China, India, Israel, like every part of this planet, there's a coordinate of that in your body. The cells are the people because a cell is a basic fundamental unit of life. A cell has even something called organ like organelle. So it's like a simpler form of you. and you're made of trillions of them. So you're actually in charge of those cells. That's God. And these ancestors people talk about and whatnot, where people say, and they religify these ancestors too, but these ancestors are basically no different than your parents. And some people have stupid parents, right? These ancestors live the hellish lifestyle. They're depending on you to become
Mm,
aware and change the patterns that are already existing in you that they once lived. That's how you carry generational curses. It's almost like somebody saying,
mhm.
cancer runs in the family. Yeah, it does, but why?
Until,
Because you eat the same garbage they were eating, you live the same inflammatory lifestyle they were eating. If you become aware of the stuff they were doing, then you change the decisions you make. And now all of a sudden you changed your reality, which means you broke out of a matrix that doesn't serve you. You get what I'm saying? It's the
yep,
same way you let certain ancestors out of hell because they're experiencing this reality through you in the form of cells that exist within you. Everything in the body, the more you cater to minding your own business because you're like the CEO of this big business, you look like an individual in the mirror,
yeah,
but you're not. You're
yeah,
actually trillions of cells
yes,
in formation,
right,
like a transformer.
right,
And what's
right,
keeping you intact are the viruses, the proteins that shape you. And you can actually control that with your mind as well, too. That's actually called mind
yes,
over matter. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody wants to
yeah,
lose weight or
that's,
like get brolic and whatnot. You could do that by taking action, but also manifesting the way you want to look in your mind as well. You could change a lot of the things in this reality
yes,
with focus and intention. And the same
yes.
thing happens
Well,
with the planet.
that's, for me personally, that's, you were speaking on the same way that I try to tell people, oh yeah, when Christ fed 5,000 people with two fish, it's simply because he realized everything is at the cellular level and you just multiply. You just multiply because he knew he had the authority over those two fish. It's real easy to just break them down and multiply them
Right.
at the cellular
God,
level,
God is
right?
Christ, that
And
Christ is a consciousness.
exactly. Well, right. The consciousness, right? Meaning we all can do that. We
Right.
all can do that. He did not do the Christ consciousness, the Buddha, whomever, all the masters that have demonstrated for us. They're demonstrating not things because they're God, but because they're trying to remind us that we can do it as well, right? So why are we not feeding 5,000 people with two fish? It's because the limitations we put on ourselves to think of things at the cellular level, all the trillion cells within this body of form, that and with any form, that you can just multiply. You can extinguish, you can multiply, you can do whatever you
Right.
want. And I think it comes back to that first taking personal responsibility of the environment, of the body, of this, and then going even deeper with it, then building on that responsibility into that you are limitless. But
You want to know something cool?
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I didn't know. I thought you were done.
Yeah, go
Again,
ahead. Yeah, no, you're
you want
good.
to know something really cool though? You could talk to your body. You could talk to
Oh,
your
yeah.
cells. You could talk to any organ that's diseased in the body, right? And you can encourage movement. You can actually go into meditation and go into like the bone marrow of your body if you want.
Yes.
This is all possible. You see, these are things that people don't know. They think they're limited. See, this is the problem. You ever heard somebody say you can't lie to others, you can only lie to yourself? There's a reason why. It's because if I tell you, hey, Courtney, tomorrow I'm gonna start my journey in like a weight loss program, right? And then you believe me, but I go and the next day I'm eating Cheetos and Dunkin' Donuts and all that
Mm-hmm.
garbage that don't belong to me, but it's
Mm-hmm.
going against what I said I was gonna do. I technically lied to myself. And
Mm-hmm.
my cells being sentient, they
Yes.
support me. But they're also aware that I lied. So I lied to myself. So they'll respond accordingly in
Yep.
inflammatory ways, right? So that's why it requires discipline when you make certain actions. That word discipline came from the word disciples. Disciples are basically the virtues and principles that follow you as the Christ figure. You have 12 cranial nerves, right? We follow a 12-hour, day, let's say like the
Yeah.
day and then
Yes,
12
a
hours at
night.
night.
Yeah.
We follow a 12 calendar system, right? Everything's in 12s. But you have these virtues and principles. You could be following the negative ones or the positive ones. Like when you have like you're training your body, right? You get trained. You can go to the gym, and in the gym you train your body. You can get trained at work. They train you mentally how to be here in society, right? But the train needs a conductor, and how you conduct yourself in society is all based on awareness. You could just be the little followers in the back of that train, or you could be the conductor on how you manage yourself in society. And that's you being God in your realm. That's being sovereign, right? You don't,
Right.
you
Right.
know how to swim around the corruptions of the laws that keep you limited and under control. You don't have to go to war
Hmm.
against anybody, but certain choices and decisions cater to your freedom. For example, if you have a rich person, right? They're rich because they have a abundant consciousness. They're making choices and decisions that are catering to them living an abundant experience, right? So their matrix
Hmm.
is abundant. A person who's got a poverty consciousness, they're always in fear, lack, their mental state, they have
Hmm.
limitations. So they make certain choices and decisions that create their reality to live that experience. So you're always creating in this reality. There's infinite versions of you. The awareness comes down to the same way I just said. If you're aware your parents made some dumbass choices, you can change the decisions and take an alternate route and and actually change your reality. There's people who watch the news all the time and in their mind they live chaotically. There's also called
Hmm.
alternative media now. So like you're listening to different things, but at the end of the day, you're still eating. There comes a
It's all
time when you have to
right.
actually even to be really truly in line with this, you have to disconnect from all this to begin with.
Yes.
I talk a lot about this in my videos where you disconnect from humanity, period, regardless of what good and bad is or favorable and unfavorable. I'm talking
Yes.
about disconnect from humanity because when I ask you what is God, right? God is also no thing. The fact is that we're also anthropomorphizing God as something also diminishes that category of God,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Right. So it's
embodying
like
this as
we're going to
being no
limit,
thing
right. We're now going to limit God into our
to something.
definition. Right.
Yeah,
Into
to
our definition.
something.
Yes. Right. I know. Right, bro?
If
Oh
God
my
is no
God.
thing, that means it can be all things because it's if you
Right.
say it's no thing, that means it's also all things if you look at the antithesis of it,
Yes.
right?
And I do. And I do see it that way of, because well, I, I agree. I agree. I fully agree. And you sprung forth a question that I do dearly want to ask.
Sure.
With everything that you just said, because when you start talking about the body and all the different channels, all the everything, and being able to talk to the body and then heal the body, get it moving, get it healed, right? What I was thinking, as to then when you said, it's easier to lie and manipulate others, but it's even easier to lie and manipulate ourselves. Oftentimes, our bodies, if we've done that for a long period of time, our bodies don't even trust us. Let
Right.
alone do we trust ourselves. Let alone do we trust others. Let alone trust this
That's the
ambiguous
secret
God
ingredient to
thing
love.
going on.
Hmm.
Right. So, for me personally, when you started talking about that, I was like, oh man, I hope people really do take this to heart and they start maybe utilizing some of the stuff being said, but I don't know if they will because so much lack of trust. Where do you think trust kind of plays into all that we've been saying about the matrix and how we operate in it and how it really does take responsibility and authority to
Right.
live the life that you desire, which I don't even like that word so much. It's low on the feeding pole of energies. But what, where do you think trust lies within all this?
Where do I think trust lies within what
The experience of the matrix. Like if we have been kind of talking and to sum up in a lot of ways, we have been talking about how there is no separation between us and all, right? We've been talking about how we have authority over what we experience internally, externally. We've been talking about a lot of this stuff, and I think in a lot of ways, why maybe we are still capping ourselves off, capping God off, even with these limitations, is because there's some kind of element there that has to do with trust.
well, here's the word that comes to mind for me, right? As far as like the question you asked me is authenticity, right? If you're not authentic, it's a form of lying to some extent, right? Because you're trying to fit in. And you know what's crazy is that when you're not authentic
Pardon
in
me.
the interest of trying to fit in, others can catch up on that. Uh, Subtly they'll catch up on it, right? We're all doing this all the time. You walk into a room, and you could feel the energy off on certain individuals and whatnot. Or if your third eye is open, it's not just to see into the metaphysical realm, but it's basically like you could see
Oh,
through the cracks of things. When somebody has ulterior motives or like an agenda and whatnot. So a lot of the trust here is authenticity, but it also comes down to integration. It's not looking at one thing. Like integration is knowing how to work with all things, because in actuality, that's the definition of love. Love is what's holding all this together. It doesn't matter if
yes.
something looks bad. You could love to hate something, right? But love is the glue that's holding everything together. That's why they say love is the answer to everything. If
Yes.
I go against you to some extent, let's say it's me versus you, I'm still going against you on something, but we're against each other. We're actually supporting each other. We're supporting
Mhm. Right.
something, right?
Yes.
So that's why
Right.
it doesn't matter what it is. When you look at yourself as an outside observer, you're kind of more like the promoter of it, if anything, and you are the one making money rather than getting, invested into something, right? So it doesn't matter. Everything is all about uh authenticity, knowing integration, like knowing how to integrate things, which is basically chemistry. Again, if you have a negative and a positive, you know how to light up in a plane. We can light each other up in certain ways, and
Yes.
it's not just like some people can light each other up lustfully, right? But there's ways you can light each other up intellectually, where through a conversation you give each other ideas, things are starting to flow, or you can actually gain energy from each other. It's a reciprocal thing, right? You ever
Right.
talk to somebody and they just drain you so much? You're like, man, I can't talk to that person. I feel tired after I talk to that person.
Right.
That's a bad chemistry. You
Right.
can meet somebody for the first time and try to go on a date with somebody and be physically attracted, but then the moment you guys try to talk, the chemistry is bad. Then it
Yeah.
doesn't work. So everything here is chemistry, but it's coming from authenticity, being yourself, and that person is there for a reason, right? It's because they're a mirror of yourself. But you try to
Yes.
be somebody you're not, and you break off of the frequency that you guys are trying to mesh with.
It's
So
so
everything
funny
here is
because you
integration and
actually,
authenticity.
Zigzag, you actually brought me to like usually what is my final question for most people here that if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't, about authenticity. Because I do think that everybody always wants to know what their purpose is, what their purpose is. Well, their purpose is to love. And I fully agree with you that love is the energy that flows throughout all things. Love is the thing that binds all of this. That is the omega and the alpha. That is the infinite. That is what will always be the energy of love. I do subscribe to that theory. But at the same time, the authenticity, I think a lot of people, they always want to know what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Well, it's to love, but it's really also to get to that full authentic self. Because imagine if Zigzag, you've been yourself this entire time, right? You've been yourself. I've been myself. Could you imagine if all humans loved and appreciated themselves and others as their authentic self, everything that we quote unquote dislike about this world or quote unquote find displeasing, it would cease to exist
That's right.
if we just
And it's
lived
all
our
it's
authentic way.
acceptance too. A lot of
Yes.
shadow work is very important, because this actually brings you back to the things that you discard about yourself only because you gave the authority for others to dictate what you should and shouldn't be, right? But when you start to
Right.
see that there's certain aspects of yourself that you hid away in the closet, those are a lot of the times a lot of your hidden gifts and talents. This comes to a certain level of acceptance. The more you accept this, it becomes conducive to society,
Yes.
because others will accept it because you accepted it first.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? The reason
Yes.
that you hid it in the closet is because you gave those people more importance than the opinions you have about yourself. That you hid those things about yourself, but that's lack of love and lack of trust in yourself. So if you love yourself, then you have enough love to give others, because love is something you can give. It's like trust. You don't give trust to anybody, right? But
Right.
if you have trust in yourself, then you
Yes.
have enough trust to give others. There's a lot of people
Yes.
who say I don't trust
Right.
nobody, and that's because they don't trust themselves. Like some people
Right.
live like closed off. I have to lock everything. I have to this. I have to that, and that's because there's in you don't trust yourself. it,
Right.
it's almost like,
Exactly.
how can you help the poor by being one of them, right? You have to have abundance to help poor people. So if you
Right.
have trust, you can give trust to everybody, and you will always
Exactly.
you're always going to be in charge of your reality. Not to say that you're vulnerable for anything. The armor of God is literally your mental state. If you believe that you're open to like attacks and whatnot, then you are opening your aura for attacks. Like your armor of God is your bulletproof mindset. That's why they
Yes.
say you
Right.
can't kill a person who's got a strong mind,
Yes.
and that's
Exactly.
determining the
Exactly.
level of trust you have in yourself, the amount of love you have in yourself determines the vitality and the energy, the life force that you have within yourself when
Yes,
you're
and which is
unshakable,
where
right? The
the
unchanging God,
authority, which is where the authority comes from that you were talking earlier. And my
right?
dear, what you're talking about too brings it full circle to that childlike. Because
Yeah,
if you, the more authentic you are, the more you're going to experience and choose and live your joy, which then brings you back to this place is wonderful. Look at how
yeah.
great it is. Look at all we can do. Look at what I can do. Let's have fun. And imagine if we all did that. Based on
The
trusting
fears.
ourselves, the love for self, living in the authenticity, then leaks into living our joy, being that childlike of accepting and loving everybody because we don't know any different.
That's right.
This world would be awesome.
And you know what? The fears you have, they're not even yours most of the time. Like even like
Right.
you can see a child, they come and they're afraid of spiders. That actually got passed down by the parents. A child, if you put them in the water coming out the womb, they know how to swim. The
Yeah.
reason they don't know how to swim anymore is because you pass the fear onto them that they don't know how to swim, and then they're gonna drown, and then that's why they develop the ability to not be able to swim. Right? Kids
Right.
are literally born limitless here. All the
Yes.
limitations are passed by the parents, and a lot of the times a lot of the limitations we have within ourselves are not ours. They're the ancestors, right? You become
Yes.
aware, you free them out of health. You free them out of those limitations. And the more you do that, you liberate the planet in and of itself. A lot of the times where a lot of this can go wrong is intellect, too much intellect. A lot of people debate
Amen.
now, but they don't
Mm.
debate in a space where it's good faith. They debate to have a battle of intellectual
Mm-hmm.
ability to smash the other person rather than seeing that even if you lose a debate, you can win because you got put onto something you didn't even know. You get what I'm saying? That's a win. But a lot of times when it's driven by
Yeah.
ego, you can't take a loss. You get what I'm saying? And that's
Right.
where I think the real bad stuff is coming in now. You can see this through politics. It starts through politics, right? And you're seeing it now through things that we've seen now in the news, like with
Mm.
even Charlie Kirk getting shot, all these things. It's like a conditioning. It's a psyop in order to control the minds of people and put them in a state where it's me versus them, and it's not.
Yes.
That's where I feel the
Mm.
key to actually living a harmonious life is just like your body. The hormones in your body are responsible for the harmony of your body, which is either a ratio between testosterone to estrogen. Even though I'm a man, I have a certain level of femininity with me. And I have to
Yes.
have a connection of that in order for me to even be a man and know how to treat a woman and have a
Right.
woman
Right.
even lead a woman. How can I lead a
Right.
woman and and not have that connection within me? It's like I'm a
Yes.
tyrant. It's almost
Yeah.
egotistical. So it's literally the blind leading the blind, and that's how they're teaching these young kids nowadays
I
through
know.
the red pill community how to live life. And that's coming from the religious mindset of certain individuals. And I think that's where the huge problem lies. It's intellect and not knowing yourself. The Bible says, man, know thyself. That is the key. And if you know yourself, believe it or not, anatomy and physiology alone gets you closer to God. Christ is a consciousness. If you look at your
Mm.
body, it's laid out exactly how the teachings of God would teach you. First of all, you got 33 vertebrae. Right above that, you got the atlanto-occipital joint, where you got the story of Atlas carrying the weight of the world on his
Yeah. Yeah.
shoulders, right?
Yes.
So you got that
Yes.
that
Right.
that joint there.
Right.
You have the 12 cranial nerves. Christ was crucified in Golgotha. You know what Golgotha means? Golgotha means skull. So if you look at the words of like Santo Bonacci, you'll see that raising a certain chrism, right? The oil
Mm-hmm.
and the sacred fluid, right? Where if you follow it where the moon lands on your sun sign, you cultivate this energy, but you bring it up. Even Joe Dispenza talks about this. You bring this energy up to the head. That energy literally is it dies uh on that hilltop, right? But it
Mm-hmm.
has to ground back down into this realm. That's where you get the story of Santa Claus bringing gifts down the chimneys. That's where your presents come in. Once you were able to alchemize that in your head, you got the pituitary, the pineal, You know what I'm saying? Like all that is a chemistry. Everything's chemistry, but it's a masculine and feminine. That's why you got the Ida, the Pingala. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You have
all of it.
the left
Yeah,
and right is all chemistry. It's masculine and
yeah,
feminine, positive and negative, acid, alkaline, electromagnetic, boy, girl, man, woman. It's just like we're
right,
living in polarity,
right,
but you have
right,
to have polarity to have an experience. Duality
eh,
is the illusion, but if you know how to manage your chemistry, you see the connectiveness. This is on a quantum level. The observer theory will show you this, that you're always going to
yes,
have different measurements than mine on that double slit experiment, but it's always going to be in waveform unless it's observed by someone. It collapses into a particle form.
right,
It's the same way. That's why I said the world is not flat or round, it's a wave. You get what I'm saying? If you
yes,
look at your body, you are the world manifested as an individual here
right,
walking the planet.
right,
The world is God, but you're the
right,
manifestation of that being walking the planet
exactly,
as God.
right. So,
You know?
yes, so, yes, if I had a religion, it'd be all his energy. You, me, all of it. All the multiverse, everything. It's just all energy. It's all just
And
energy. And
understanding what that is, right?
yeah,
Understanding what
understand.
energy
Yes,
is.
yes, yes, I agree. So, we're gonna sound off here, and I want to say thank you to all the beautiful stars. I'm glad that the chat was very lively tonight, and I appreciate Zig Zag Zilla. Please go back and definitely in the description, um, subscribe to his channel. Zigzag, before we let go though, is there any
Mhm.
final remarks that you want to say about Matrix Living or anything? Like, what would you want?
Uh,
What do you want to tell people, Zigzag? What do you want to share as we're sounding off and telling everybody to have a great week and do enjoy beautiful stars?
well, the main thing I want to say is connect with yourself and understand what shadow work is. That's the main thing here, right? It's not a path for the left hand path. Like shadow work is literally you uh getting to the shadow aspects of yourself, like what's in you that you are ashamed of showing others outside of yourself. And when you are able to accept those things, supposed like it's something that somebody would consider a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if you know how to integrate it with love and you're able to have it be conducive in society. Others are going to be experiencing the same thing you are, and you're actually healing them through that process. Like
Mm,
attracts like, right? And that's
mm,
why if somebody, let's say you have certain addictions, certain problems you may have, and you don't know how to manage yourself out of that bubble, there's going to be others like you that you're going to attract based on you talking about it. There's a level of uh, vulnerability also, because you don't want to be in a way where you just spill your guts out to the world. It's not about that. You know what I'm saying? It's knowing how to, channel the right information out based on getting an awareness of self and where you're at mentally. But um, that's about it. It's not really anything special. I covered a lot of the stuff here
yeah.
in this a conversation, and I do appreciate the chat with you. I feel like you're a very good host. Like I said, you kept up with a chaotic person like myself, because I know I am very, very chaotic. All right, so you did keep up, and you brought me back to where I was supposed to be at, so I do very much appreciate that. And the thing is, I got a lot to say, and it's like
you
I don't know. I don't know if you know who Alex Jones is. I kind of see like myself as that. Sometimes I just see things coming, and I just start to,
yes.
and it's a channel. I channel a lot, and it's like a lot of it. I just want to get it out, and it just comes out sometimes where it's a little random. But I'm learning how to make sure I integrate it into like a nice little channel where it's clear for everybody. But
You know
I
what?
guess that's one of
Most
the things I have
most
to work on.
most of the beautiful minds here at this channel, they all can flow with you. They can all start just track. They can all track. They might pause where you said something brilliant and they'll think about it and they'll jump right back into the conversation as far as following you. I thought I can, and I know they can,
Yeah.
and I think you've said a lot of things tonight, and this is why I did want to bring you on is because you say a lot of things that, like I said, bring it back to grounded. Bring it back to this is where we start. This is how we do this. Let's keep it real. We're on this earth, so let's enjoy this earth. And if you got to do some healing and accept all your little shadow parts in order to understand more of what we're talking about, then do so. Know thyself. You really do bring it back to well, for me, the authenticity of connecting the humanness with all this metaphysical stuff. And that's
Yeah,
what I appreciate is because when people do listen to you, so everybody please go subscribe. When people listen to you, it is an encouragement that, oh, I can do that too. I can do that. I might not say it the same way, I might not see it the same way, talk it the same way, but I can clearly do it too because you keep it real in the humanness. And that's what I think is brilliant, opposed to those intellectuals that do want to debate. What does that have to do with anything at the end of the day when there's no progression within humanity or in someone's own awareness? So
right.
that I applaud you for doing, and you've always done it. So maybe we'll have you back on at Stars of the Morning Light if you enjoy talking with us here. Then we'll definitely have you back on, Zigzag.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I appreciate you inviting me on. I mean, I've been on Milky Way's channel a few times and I enjoyed being there as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure. It's a great conversation I had with you. So I would definitely love to come on whenever you want me on. I'll definitely come on.
Okay, cool, cool. And I want to tell everybody happy 2026 because now we are definitely in 2026. And so happy New Year's and 2026 to you, Zigzag, and all the beautiful stars out there. And lovely stars, please leave a comment below. Go subscribe, share this out, and keep on shining because you are brilliant and the light is worth it. Bye, Zigzag. Bye, everybody. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.